Welcome to episode 6 of the mini-series, The Biology of Meaning. In health, as in culture and economics, the definition of normal doesn't emerge from a vacuum. The actual biology of the individual, with their history, context, and particularities, has been replaced by global thresholds created by panels that often respond more to financial interests than to individual biological evidence. This episode reveals how the redefinition of biological parameters has transformed millions of previously healthy people into patients, not because of actual illness, but because of shifting criteria that expand the market. Welcome to Money, Money, Money. One from normalcy to business. A prime example is the lowering of diagnostic thresholds for metabolic conditions such as diabetes and prediabetes. In 1997, the fasting glucose threshold for diagnosing diabetes was adjusted from greater than or equal to 140 milligrams per deciliter to greater than or equal to 126 milligrams per deciliter, automatically increasing the number of people labeled as ill. Later, the concept of prediabetes was popularized with increasingly lower thresholds, below 100 milligrams per deciliter and HbA1c of 5.7 to 6.4%. Doubling the prevalence of this condition without solid evidence of universal benefit. The result? Millions of people are now on the radar of the healthcare system and the pharmaceutical market, even though most lack actual symptoms and the evidence of benefit is limited or focused on average, rather than individual populations. 2. Who decides the parameters? What is presented as neutral science often is not. In diagnostic definition committees, up to 95% of participants have financial ties to the pharmaceutical industry, the same industry that benefits from the expansion of diagnoses such as prediabetes or hypertension. This is no small matter. When the criteria are lowered and more people are considered ill, the drug market skyrockets, with billions of dollars spent annually on the treatment of hypertension and diabetes. 3. Agrochemicals, pharmaceuticals, and capital accumulation. Some business groups that hold patents in industrial agrochemicals also have stakes or investments in large pharmaceutical companies. Although they are not always exactly the same companies, the investment structures and cross-ownership of capital between pharmaceutical companies, agribusiness, and financial funds suggest a larger phenomenon. The health and agricultural economies form profit cycles that reproduce medicalization and diagnostic disease. This parallel, that of controlling markets, is not personal. For what is ignored? Biological uniqueness. Global diagnostic parameters do not take into account sex. Reference ranges are often standardized to unisex, age, biological constitution, family history, or race, even though these factors profoundly alter how the same laboratory value can be interpreted in completely different ways from one person to another. You might mention that although not all of these companies are fully pharmaceutical, capital, share ownership, and corporate strategies cross boundaries between industrial agriculture, chemistry, and pharmaceuticals. This is part of the critique of a system where the same economic interests can influence both the definition of disease and the design of products to cure it. For example, the definition of prediabetes may include values that, in certain populations, do not imply a substantial risk of progression, but do increase consumer markets. Examples of companies that produce and sell agrochemicals and pharmaceuticals. Bayer AG operates in both human medicines and crop protection and seeds. It is one of the most visible examples of a company with lines of business spanning agrochemicals and pharmaceuticals. Syngenta, ChemChina, a leader in agrochemicals, part of a state-owned group with broad industrial interests. It does not directly have pharmaceutical lines, but is part of a larger chemical conglomerate. Historical chemical corporations, such as Whirlpool Inc., integrated industrial and pharmaceutical chemistry, and their corporate remnants are now fragmented among large groups. Sanofi, Solvay, Bayer. 5. Biology of meaning and German new medicine. From the perspective of biology of meaning, the definition of disease cannot be a rigid line. The body responds in adaptive, individualized ways, and many responses that we now label as pathological are physiological adjustments with biological meaning. From the perspective of German new medicine, disease, including phases such as prediabetes or mild hypertension, is part of the natural history of special biological programs, phases that can have adaptive meaning. Interpreting them solely as disease is epistemological violence. 6. Pharaoh. Consciousness, person, world. The Pharaoh approach reminds us that each laboratory result is a reflection of a unique organism, a moment in a person's biological history, influenced by context, life stories, and adaptations. Biological and cultural diversity cannot be supplanted with global thresholds that maximize markets, but perhaps minimize individual clinical understanding. Point 7. A powerful critique of the biomedical pharmacological model. Evidence shows that changing diagnostic thresholds expands disease prevalence without proportional evidence of clinical benefit for all. Diagnostic redefinition has been influenced by industry. Halting medicalization requires profound questioning that goes beyond the numbers. This model does not adapt to the individual. It homogenizes, categorizes, and inserts them into a cycle of continuous pharmacological treatment. Key lesson: the definition of disease cannot be a price everyone pays, without consideration of history, meaning, and uniqueness, to enrich a few. When the definition of health is sold, care is lost. If you enjoyed this episode, don't miss the next one about the origins of cholesterol testing. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Share it to raise awareness. Learn science with awareness, because in health, knowledge isn't neutral. It's vital.